Ladies and gentlemen, President Trump has pretty much just declared all-out war against the Democrats' single largest taxpayer-subsidized slush fund. And so, folks, buckle up because today we have a lot to talk about. Now, as many of you know, for years now, we've been pumping hundreds of billions of dollars into the Democrats' beloved Affordable Care Act. But interestingly enough, healthcare premiums have just continued to go up while the quality of healthcare has just continued to go down. And the reason why is because the Democrats have been in bed with all of the corrupt insurance companies and corrupt healthcare providers, effectively skimming money off of the top every single step of the way. Which is why President Trump just posted this on Truth Social. Take a look. The only healthcare I will support or approve is sending the money directly back to the people, with nothing going to the big, fat, rich insurance companies who have made trillions of dollars and ripped off America long enough. The people will be allowed to negotiate and buy their own much better insurance. Power to the people. Congress, do not waste your time and energy on anything else. This is the only way to have great healthcare in America. Get it done now. And so, ladies and gentlemen, there you have it. Like I said, as of today, President Trump is officially going all out against the Democrats' biggest federally funded slush fund, otherwise known as the Affordable Care Act. But you know what's perhaps the craziest part about all of this? Pretty much every single person in the country acknowledges that the ACA, the Affordable Care Act, is both ineffective and corrupt. Even the folks over at MSNBC. Take a look.
Leader Jeffries, though, even with those tax credits, premiums are exploding. And they'll be exploding under Obamacare. They'll be exploding in private health care. I mean, at what point are we going to sit down and figure out a systemic approach that actually is sustainable? Because we're not in it now. And again, even with those tax credits, the Obamacare premiums explode. Even worse, private health care premiums explode. Denials of coverage multiplying. A lot of those denials coming reportedly from AI. This system is failing the American people, and it's only going to get worse. What are we going to do?
There's no doubt about that, Joe. We have a broken healthcare system, and unfortunately, Republicans have decided to break it even further.
Folks, what Hakeem Jeffries just said can pretty much only be described as pure insanity. The reality is, the Affordable Care Act has been broken since day one, right around 10 years ago now, but instead of just acknowledging that and working with President Trump and the Republicans to try to fix it, Mr. Hakeem Jeffries is actually mad that President Trump isn't willing to keep on wasting hundreds of billions worth of taxpayer dollars. But really, this is just what the Democrats do best: waste money. However, President Trump has a little bit of a different plan going forward. Take a look at this.
Under President Trump in the last few months, we have seen the first significant reductions in prices and the cost of living since the last time President Trump was in office. For 4 years, we saw record-setting double-digit inflation upwards of 20%. And now under President Trump, inflation is back down to desired benchmark levels of a little bit over 2%. But to be clear, President Trump is doing more every single day to keep bringing costs down. President Trump is fighting to reduce the cost of energy to historic lows. Did you know that right now, as an example, Americans are spending less of their disposable income on energy because of President Trump's work to open up American energy than at any point in 2 decades? So he's removed all the regulations, opened up drilling, opened up oil, opened up natural gas. He's brought down the price of household goods. He's brought down the price of groceries. He has fought like a warrior to bring costs down.
And so, folks, really, I've got to give President Trump some credit here. The complete and total mess that was left behind by Joe Biden and the Democrats really is almost unbelievable, but it's true. President Trump is slowly lifting this country out of the hole that the Democrats put us in. And you know what? President Trump's economic policies are actually going so well right now that he's actually looking to spread that success around a little bit in the form of dividends for all of us hardworking Americans, entirely funded by President Trump's trade tariffs. But before we talk about that, I do want to say real quick that if you folks enjoy the daily news updates, please consider subscribing to the channel because it really does help a lot. But okay, take a look at this.
Hundreds of millions of dollars in tariff money. We're going to be issuing dividends later on, somewhere prior to, probably in the middle of next year, a little bit later than that, of thousands of dollars for individuals of moderate income, middle income. We're going to pay down debt. We have a lot of money from tariffs. If we didn't have tariffs, this nation would be in serious trouble. And we've taken in tremendous amounts of money.
And so, folks, now we're talking about the $2,000 tariff-funded dividend that pretty much everybody has been raving about lately. In fact, as things currently stand, President Trump is expected to start handing out these tariff-funded dividends in the middle of 2026, shortly after Federal Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell is set to resign. But now, folks, as it relates to rehabilitating this insane economy that President Trump has inherited from Joe Biden and the Democrats, President Trump has also set his eyes on another target. You see, still to this day, the Trump administration is conducting audits on the federal government, looking for more fraud, waste, and abuse. And much to no one's surprise, they just recently uncovered an absolutely insane amount of fraud within the SNAP federally funded food assistance program. In fact, what they recently found was that for years now, over 186,000 deceased people have been receiving monthly SNAP payments, which really just means that someone else has hijacked their identity in an attempt to receive double payments. And then on top of that, we also know that hundreds of thousands of illegal aliens have also been collecting SNAP benefits as well. And so really, this is why the Trump administration just made the announcement that every single one of this nation's 42 million monthly SNAP recipients is going to have to reapply to the entire program. But you know what? While we're talking about SNAP, take a look at this.
SNAP is not so much about feeding the people that maybe need it, but it's Frito-Lay, it's Pepsi, it's all the guys making the junk food, Walmart, it's the distribution system and the producer itself. This is why when the SNAP benefits get talked about, it's not alliances of poor people up here knocking on doors. It's the biggest lobbyists in town because SNAP drives, I think, 20% of Walmart's profitability. And it's basically 40%, I think, of the operating income because what they're selling is the ultra-processed food that has these super high margins.
And so, ladies and gentlemen, there you have it. Really, much like the Affordable Care Act, a program that maybe originally had good tensions and that was originally designed to help Americans, SNAP has ended up just becoming yet another federally funded subsidy for a bunch of multi-billion-dollar corporations. And of course, as many of you know, right around 80% of SNAP recipients are in fact Democrat voters, with much of that federally funded SNAP funding just flowing right back up into the pockets of the Democrat politicians. But now, folks, this is really where today's video is going to get a little bit controversial, because late last night, none other than Stephen Miller actually chimed in on the ongoing discussion relating to H-1B, highly skilled work visas. So take a look.
The semiconductor industry, which is one of the most coveted industries in the world, one of the most national security important industries in the world, very few other countries are able to compete in this space, and all of those jobs left for Taiwan. And so the advanced semiconductor industry, which is essential to our national security, has been taken out of the country. And so he's talking about a program in which you have a knowledge transfer to Americans of how to do a very specific manufacturing process. That's completely separate and apart from the fact, as you mentioned, that President Trump, through 212F, has put a $100,000 fee on new H-1Bs. We're already seeing a dramatic change in the processing of these visas as a result of that. The Department of Labor has launched Project Firewall to fight illegal discrimination against Americans and illegal abuses of the H-1B program. You also have the highest standard of vetting that have ever been in place in new visas, including foreign student visas. The State Department has revoked tens of thousands of visas, and they're just getting started with tens of thousands of more. Yep. We have a new focus on denaturalizations. We have a new focus on cutting back on welfare tourism and welfare migration. And of course, you've seen, again, for the first time in over half a century, net negative migration to this country. You have more foreigners leaving the country than those that are being added on a permanent basis. The last time that happened, again, was over half a century ago during the period in American history in which we had net negative migration for an extended period of time.
And so, folks, before we really break down this entire situation regarding President Trump's plan for the H-1B work visas, take a look at this. Since stepping back into the White House, the number of foreign students in the country has plummeted by a whopping 17%, and we also haven't had a single illegal alien border crossing in over 6 months now. In fact, as Stephen Miller just mentioned, 2025 is actually the first year that the United States immigrant population has decreased since the mid-1950s. That's a big deal. And to top that off, going into 2026, President Trump has reduced the number of H-1B highly skilled work visas going out by a massive 25%, and then, of course, he's also mandated a $100,000 application fee for all new H-1B visa applications as well. And so right now, it seems as if when President Trump is talking about H-1B work visas, he's not talking about flooding the country with 200,000 low-skill workers from India like we've seen in the past. Instead, it sounds like he genuinely only wants a couple dozen highly skilled immigrants from countries like Taiwan to teach American workers how to perform very specific mechanically complex operations. Then, once they're done, they'll leave. They'll actually go back home to their country of origin. And so, folks, I know that this entire H-1B work visa discussion has been incredibly controversial, but I really think that right now all we can do is take President Trump at his word and give him the benefit of the doubt. But I'll tell you this much, with everything that we've talked about today, it really does seem like President Trump is actually putting America first.